It's here, everybody. The NCAA tournament is upon us. It's Amedeus and Jim. We're here. We told you about what was going to happen today because games are being played as we speak. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's going to happen tomorrow. Let me do a real quick fly through. First of all, welcoming Amadeus. Good to have you. And you were on that Grambling train last night.
Yeah, Grambling State was a team I was on. I was also on Colorado, so had a nice
There you
2-0
go.
start to the NCAA tournament. I didn't really give out I didn't give out anything in the other first four games on Tuesday, but definitely was on those two last night, Colorado and Grambling. But it's not looking good in my first game of the day here. I was on Mississippi State in the game that was. Both teams don't really deserve to be there,
Right.
but I had a 4-2 day yesterday in college basketball, so I'm confident we'll bounce back from this Mississippi State loss to start the day. And so I got like 7 plays up plus a free play on Tennessee later today. So tons of action
Go out there
going on.
and get it
The
now.
madness has begun.
Right. Speaking of the aforementioned Michigan State and Mississippi State, it's Michigan State 66, Mississippi State 51. 3:49 left to go in that game on CBS. Over on True TV, this has been a rock fight for quite a while now. Duquesne 46 and BYU 32. The Dukes are pulling, I don't know that you can call it upset, but yeah, I guess you could. There's 16 minutes and 7 seconds left to go in the second half in that game, and you can watch it on True TV if you so desire. Over on TNT, they just got started. Well, no, I'm sorry. They are in the first half. They're cruising toward halftime. Akron and Creighton are locked at 31. Over on TBS, you can see Long Beach State and Arizona. Right now, it's an 8-5, 9-5. They just scored another point. Arizona 9, Long Beach 5. So let's, if you happen to be watching, if you want to stream and you're on True TV, TBS, TNT, you can do it if you're a subscriber to Max or if you subscribe to Sling. Meanwhile, if you want to watch CBS and stream it, then again, the trick there is Paramount Plus, or I would suggest YouTube TV. So there's your options if you happen to want to watch those games. So those are the games that are being played right now. Here's what's being played tomorrow, and we're going to take a quick look at that. The first game off the docket tomorrow, Amadeus, is on CBS. It's a 12:15 tip. It is an 8-9 game. It's Northwestern as a 9 seed. And last year's Cinderella team and the team that made it to the Final Four, Florida Atlantic, and in the 8-9 game. And I saw a lot of Florida Atlantic this year and some of Northwestern. I'm not sure what to make of this. What are your
Sorry, just having some audio troubles here. But to
okay?
talk about the Northwestern FAU game. Yeah, FAU,
Right.
they're a 3-point favorite into this one. As you said, they were last year's Cinderella story. They went 30-5, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
during the regular season or somewhere along that lines. But this year, they're not. It's funny. They're the same team player wise, but they're just not the same team. They didn't dominate the AAC. They
Mm-hmm.
it was their first year moving to that conference. They didn't finish first
Mm-hmm.
in the regular season, lost that to our boys over at South Florida, who probably is the team that deserves to be playing in this game over FAU. Because FAU also, they just like South Florida, they fizzled out in the semifinals, and of all teams to Temple. So, like I said, this
Mm-hmm.
FAU team, they've had some questionable losses this year. Obviously, they had that loss against Bryant at home earlier this season, but we sweep that one under the rug to get them in the
Right.
tournament. So, yeah, FAU hasn't been a team that's impressed me. Northwestern hasn't been a team that's impressed me away from home, so this is going to be an interesting game for sure. But yeah, definitely, I don't think we're going to see the same FAU team we saw last year.
No. Think that Colgate might be, a bit better than Baylor. What's the line on that game? Did you get knocked out there?
Yeah, I had to leave and come back because everything kept freezing on me. I couldn't hear you. The audio wasn't coming through. So, it wouldn't be one of our shows without a technical Thursday or
True.
some
A
sort of
glitch
lines.
somewhere.
But I think everything's running fine for right now. I did hear
Okay.
you asked about the Colgate Baylor. The line is -14 for Baylor right now. Colgate, they're kind of like Vermont, right? They're always dominant in their conference. You always expect them to be there, but you don't expect them to go very far. So
Right.
We'll see. Like I think Baylor is going to have no problem in this game, obviously. But then again, we said that about a few teams yesterday.
True.
And here we
100%.
are. We got BYU trailing Duquesne and Akron giving Creighton trouble. So that's the madness, right? Anything
That's
can
the
happen.
reason, yeah.
But I definitely think Baylor's safe to win this game at least.
Yeah, I agree with you. They should be fine. Baylor fans, don't worry, you're good. All right. Another team that we saw a lot. First round game tomorrow, 1:45 on TNT. This is San Diego State, a 5 seed, taking on UAB, a 12 seed, and the Blazers, made it into the tournament by winning the AAC championship. They're a solid little team. This to me is more of a toss-up than one side blowing the other one out.
Yeah, this is definitely a game I won't be on myself. I've watched a few
Wise
UAB
choice.
games this year. They something fishy going on with the reffing in those games. San Diego State comes into this game as a 7-point favorite. And if anything, I would take the points with UAB because I'm right there with you. I think it's more of a toss-up game. Actually, in my bracket, I have UAB advancing here just because they've been that kind of wild card team. And San Diego State, they were good this year. And yeah, they went to the Final Four like FAU last year. But again, they weren't the best team regular season in their conference. Didn't even win the conference tournament. Lost to New Mexico. And yeah, New Mexico went on to win it. But this isn't the same San Diego State team. And unlike FAU, FAU, we've talked about how they've returned 95% of their team from last year pretty much. This San Diego State team had a lot more turnover. They really only it was a little under 50% of the team they returned. So there's a bunch of new players there. And yes, they have the experience of going to the Final Four last year. But again, not everybody is there. And this UAB team, they won the NIT last year. So wouldn't be shocked if they have tournament experience. Maybe not the big dance experience, but they have, they know what it's like to win.
They played under fire.
Games. Yeah. So definitely. And again, this 5-12 matchup. So if we're talking these 5-12 upsets, I think UAB might be one of your 12s that goes through.
We come up at 2:00 tomorrow on TBS with a fun game with Western Kentucky, who always plays well in tournaments. They don't necessarily win a lot, but they do put some heart palpitations into many of their opponents. And they're taking on a number 2 Marquette team. which we love what Shock is doing up there, and I think that Marquette should get by Western Kentucky. It could be close, but they should be able to get past them.
Yeah, I agree with that. Marquette is supposed to get Tyler Kolek back for this game, so that's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a huge boost. They do have another injury to one of their starters, questionable, but Kolek is a big factor on the court for
Mm-hmm.
them. That's going to be a huge boost for Marquette. This Western Kentucky team is very weird. They got hot at the end there and won their
Mm-hmm.
conference tournament to be here, but
Right.
really, they were irrelevant the entire season. They finished 8-8 in the conference, which was third place, believe it or
Right.
not. But all year, it felt like, the odds makers liked La Tech. It felt like everybody on the planet liked La Tech.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I thought Sam Houston was the best in that
I
conference.
remember. Yeah.
And sure enough, both of them ended up losing in the conference tournament. And here we are with Western Kentucky. So
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, I think, especially with Cola coming back, it'll be too much for Western Kentucky to handle
Right.
this team.
Here's our favorite to be the champion of this year. Yukon Huskies starting their game at 2:45 over on CBS. They take on the Hatters from Stetson. This is one of those games where you go get your picture taken. You go on the court. You're on the court with Yukon. The game begins, and basically that's the last time you see Stetson. They just look. They won the American Sun. God love them. It's fantastic. But this is a Yukon team on a mission.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say that it's one of those games where Stetson they try their ass off to win the tip off, get the first basket in, pause the game, let's take a
Right.
picture in front of the
Right.
scoreboard, 2-0
That would
Stetson.
be a good idea.
All right, and then UConn proceeds to win 62-33.
Right, or more. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a name the score. No, it's look, if this was a baseball game between Stetson and UConn, a high school, college baseball game, I'd take Stetson, but it's not. So UConn, they love that number one status. They want to be a back-to-back champion. Nobody's done that since Florida did it. So UConn and Mr. Hurley, they're rocking at this point. And Stetson, God love them. They just aren't in the category as UConn. There aren't many teams in the category of UConn. New Mexico State. No, I'm sorry, New Mexico, I should say. New Mexico and Clemson is our game at 3:10 on True TV tomorrow. Gosh, New Mexico played pretty well to get themselves into the tournament. Clemson, again, I hate to fade on Clemson here, but I don't think Clemson is a very good basketball team. So I'm sure that Clemson is favored, but it's crazy. In my mind, this could go either way.
Yeah, so funny you say that. New Mexico's actually favored 2.5 points.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and New Mexico, look, they were very good in the regular season. Obviously, finished 10-8 in the conference, but they were the team really when they started. We thought Colorado State was going to dominate the conference. Mm-hmm. It ended up being New Mexico in a race with, I believe it was Utah State and somebody else even just fight constantly, maybe even Nevada, but they were on a hot streak. Now they did, fizzle out a bit near the end of the season, but then they got hot again and they won their conference tournament. And that's a big reason why they're here. Whereas, Clemson, I agree with you. Clemson, they had a win against Alabama earlier this season, but they really, they haven't impressed me that much. Specifically, like they weren't a dominant team in the conference, and they didn't do anything in their conference tournament either. They lost to Boston College of all teams. So I look at that and I agree with you. I don't know what this Clemson team is. The odds say it's pretty much a pick 'em. And I think that's about right because, like I said, you got this streaky New Mexico team that is hot right now versus the Clemson team that's a true wild card.
4:15 on TNT tomorrow. If this were a college quiz show, Yale would beat Auburn. It's not. It's a basketball game. And Yale's played okay. Not throw shade here on Yale. Yale has played well in what has been a very competitive Ivy League this year. Are they able to beat Auburn? I don't know, but they're not a bad little team. I'll say that for Auburn has been streaky. Auburn won the SEC championship game, and so we'll see how that plays out. What do you think about Auburn?
Yeah, Auburn, I think, is a very good team. And I've said this a few times already. I think they're playing with a chip on their shoulder. Obviously, they won the SEC tournament. And I think a big part of that is how, they were never really ranked inside the top 10 this year.
Right.
They always had to hear about how great, Tennessee and Kentucky and all these other teams. And then
Alabama.
And all of a sudden South Carolina came out of nowhere. So any little recognition Auburn was getting was stolen by, this dark horse out of nowhere that's leading the conference for most of the season. So definitely, I think Auburn, they showed that in the SEC tournament. They played with that chip on their shoulder. I think they want to go deep here. They're definitely going to get up for the game. And Yale, I totally agree with you. Yale's a very good team. They were one of the best in the Ivy League. But the fact of the matter is they finished second in the conference behind Princeton and tied with Cornell. So there were three very good teams in that conference. And let's be real. Yale, if they don't hit that buzzer beater, Brown is in the tournament and Yale's
and they're not. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when I look at that, I say,
makes you want to say, yes.
Yeah, because Yale really, they were losing that whole game. They were lucky that they came back and hit that shot. And like I said, Brown is a team that I don't think deserved to even be in the tournament. So good for Yale pulling through. And I could make the case that Yale and Princeton belong in the tournament, but I think that's what happened when Princeton lost in the semis. They're only going to give one bid, especially if Brown beats Yale. And the fact that Yale struggled so much against Brown, I think it speaks volumes. And I just
100%.
I fear for any team that's standing in the path of this Auburn team, because it is going to take, I truly think, one of the best teams in this tournament to take Auburn out this year.
Well, here's two teams that won't be taking Auburn out, playing at 4:30 on TBS. We saw Colorado play the other night, and they looked pretty good. That was last night, and they looked pretty good in their game. And they're taking the Florida Gators on. The last time Florida took the court, they lost to Auburn in the championship game at in the SEC. So it's a potential. There is a potential that Florida and Auburn could meet each other. In the following round. So that would be a rematch of the SEC title game. Florida's just not. I mean, I think Florida can get by Colorado, but I don't think they're going to go deep into this tournament. They're just not playing. Their front line is not there. I mean, they're getting out rebounded by everybody, and they've got two fantastic guards, but two guards can't carry the whole way if they have to rebound too. So that's a problem with Florida. Florida's a little bit, surprisingly, they've been a little bit slow. And, I would have thought better, but they've had some bigs, and the bigs aren't really performing to their level. Now, if they do, well, then that's a different thing. Because we've seen Florida be streaky and come on and beat some teams they shouldn't have. But there they are with 7 seed taking on a Colorado team that played the other, last night and looked pretty good in winning.
Yeah, so a lot of similarities here, just because both of these teams got hot at the end of the season. Obviously, Florida lost in the SEC championship, and Colorado lost in the Pac-12 championship after they went on a bit of a run there. And I think a big factor here is going to be the fact that Colorado played last night, and Florida's been off for pretty much a week, because Colorado gets off to a fast start here. It's going to be tough for Florida to come back in this game, especially with the fact that Florida lost a very good player in that championship game to a gruesome injury. So,
Florida's not the team that comes back on people.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Florida is they put up a lot of points, and they'll keep driving the score up. But Colorado's got the kind of team that can play defense. If you watch, they were leading that game against Boise State pretty much all night. There was this a time where with 5 minutes to go, they actually lost the lead, but they stepped up on defense. They came back, and they won by 7 points and covered the spread. So got to give my respect to Colorado for sure in this game. But I definitely think the fact that Colorado played last night, because also they do have to travel, but it's something where Colorado went into that game last night knowing who they were going to play if they won. And so you can somewhat prepare for that.
Right.
Florida really had no idea who they were going to play. They could assume one was going to win over the other, but you can't do that because anything can happen. So I definitely think just the layoff, Colorado's kind of got in a rhythm now with that win, tournament game already under their belt. So I think the advantage is with them here. But
right, and they played in a hostile environment, which was on the road. So it as you say, it got them battle tested. So that should be a fun game.
Yep.
By the way, Michigan State has already defeated Mississippi State today. Duquesne and BYU. Duquesne continues to hold a lead over BYU. It's close. It's 52-49 with 7 minutes left to go. That's on True TV over on TNT. Akron Creighton continue to have a battle, which is quite close. It's Creighton 39 and Akron 34 in that game. It's halftime on TNT. Early in the first half, actually 7 minutes, 51 seconds into the first half, on TBS, it's Long Beach State. Long Beach State beating Arizona in a close one, 22-19. So that's your scores for what's going on right now. And let's move on over.
That's our team, Jim. Long Beach. That was the only 1-2 upset we predicted could happen. The Long Beach State victory.
Let's go Long Beach. All right. So we'll be back to them later. In the first round.
A
lot of basketball to play in this game, but hang in there, boys. Nebraska, the 8 seed, taking on the 9 seed Texas A&M. That's a 6:50 tip on TNT tomorrow. It's kind of funny to see the Cornhuskers in the NCAA basketball tournament. It's not a normal place for Nebraska basketball, but they've upped their game, and they come into this tournament as an 8 seed going into a 9.
Yeah, and this one is kind of funny to me just because Texas A&M was ranked coming into the season. They're expected to be a lot better than the way they performed. They still found a way into the tournament this year, but they were a much better team last year, and they were in the tournament last year. And funny enough, they got destroyed by a Penn State team, which I believe had to play in the first 4 games.
They did, yeah.
And we're lucky because I remember that was the talk is Penn State was a team that, how did they even get in there last year? There was other teams that they could have put in over that. So it was already a controversial pick.
Right.
And so they go and knock Texas A&M out in a game they were supposed to lose. And I find it funny because could Texas A&M have some trauma playing another Big Ten team here in the first round, right? Or do they use that experience to motivate themselves? As you said, Nebraska, it's not often they make it to the big dance. Right. And we've seen many times where experience can come into play, obviously with Michigan State earlier, who has already punched their ticket through to the second round. So when the lights turn on, does this Nebraska team fold, or does this Texas A&M team have, PTSD over last year?
Right. I'll say this. Both these fan bases travel. There will be Nebraska fans and there will be Texas A&M fans. So I think Nebraska, they're going to have a crowd, and the funny thing is in crowds in these neutral sites, because you're watching, if you got your tickets to both games, right? And so, you'll watch the game before, and you'll latch on to say in Nebraska and cheer them on to beat to beat a Texas A&M team. So it really is one of those things where, as I say, Nebraska will travel. They'll be crazy. As I said before, which we were talking about just a minute ago, they don't come to this tournament often. So, and Nebraska football hasn't exactly, turned a lot of bowls recently. So this will be a trip that Nebraska, basketball fans and Nebraska fans themselves will go to. I think that Texas A&M will probably travel, but I don't know if they're going to travel as well as Nebraska travels.
Yeah, and the other thing here, Nebraska, it's just we'll see what happens when the lights turn on, because they were a team that they were leading Illinois huge in the Big Ten tournament, and then they ended up losing that game by almost 10 points. So with that kind of streakiness in game, Texas A&M can definitely do some damage, but
Yep.
it depends what Nebraska's going to show up here.
All right, just to prove that the Blue Bloods always get television time, because we saw that UConn is going to be on CBS. Here we are. CBS is 7:10 game. 7:10 is the tip-off time. Here's two teams that each year, pretty much you can pencil them in. Now, you can't necessarily pencil the seeding in, but you can pencil them in because they're always there, and that would be Vermont and Duke. Duke is a 4 seed. Vermont is an 11 seed. The Catamounts are used to this tournament, and everybody who knows anything about college basketball is fully aware that Duke does know something about college basketball.
Yeah, and this is another interesting game to me, just because you got Duke as a 12-point favorite here. But both of these teams, as you said, they have so much experience playing in this tournament. They're there basically every year. But at the same time, it almost feels like we're getting the shell of both of these two teams. Because obviously, you've talked about it many times, but this Duke team, this is not the Coach K Duke team. No. We don't quite know what this John Shire Duke team really is. They don't seem to have an identity. And Vermont, again, one of those teams, they dominate their conference. They get here every year, but they're also a team that is very dominant, specifically at their home building, where it's very tough to play. And they weren't as dominant there this season, especially in some of their non-conference games. I remember in a game earlier this year, Yale gave them a lot of trouble. There's a few mid-major schools that were giving them trouble at home, and that's not good if you're Vermont. I see Duke winning this game. I don't know about the 12 points. This probably won't be a game that I'll be on, but it would shock me if Vermont pulls an upset. No, because I think we're getting, two schools that have great history in the tournament, but not so much, in recent years.
I think what we'll see from Vermont, and it has to do with the fact that you're a tournament team year in and year out, is that they'll step on the court, and the moment they step on the court, they won't be intimidated by the fact they're playing Duke. That doesn't mean you're going to beat the other team, right? But it simply means that you step onto the court as thinking as you're an equal. It's like, we're here, they're here. Okay, we've been here, they've been here. We know we know the history of Duke, and at the end of the day, you can win or lose the game, but they're not going to be intimidated by the fact that they are standing on the court with the Duke Blue Devils. And I can tell you, there are certain teams, right? And it doesn't matter what, baseball teams, football teams, whatever. When you're on the same field or court with them, there's an intimidation factor because of what's the name that's on the front of the uniform. And in the case of, of Duke, it's been that way for many years. However, as I said before, Vermont, they've been to tournaments. They understand what's there. Can Duke beat them? Will Duke beat them? Most likely. But, don't look for Vermont to just be overly impressed because they're playing Duke.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point to make, just because we have a saying, or I have a saying when I play golf. When you play with crap, you play like crap. When you play with good players, you tend to
Right.
play better. And
Uh-huh.
that can work in the same sense. You say they're going to step
Absolutely.
on the court and they're not going to feel intimidated. Well, it could even give them a boost because they're going to raise their
Yeah.
level of play, knowing we got to match Duke here. We got to play better. We're playing with good players on the court. We got to be at our best today. And when you don't have those nerves getting in your way, absolutely, they could pull off an upset here. Who knows?
You never know. That's for darn sure. All right. A 16-1. That's a 7:25 tip on TBS. The second number one in the Midwest region is Purdue, and they're facing a Grambling team that, played well last night in getting themselves into the tournament. And they're a scrappy team. I don't think they're enough to beat Purdue, but they definitely proved last night that they're a team worthy of being here.
Yeah, I was on Grambling last night, but honestly, this is a game we can gloss over. I've talked many times about how Purdue's not going out in the first round this year. The spread is 26.5. No one's betting this game. And honestly, Grambling State, yeah, they earned it, but man, they're lucky to be here. I was crapping my pants in that first half. They were down by 15 for most of that game. How they came back and won it in overtime, I mean, great on them, but I don't know. Maybe they covered 26.5. Who knows?
I'll even tell you that around halftime I fell asleep. Okay, and Grambling was behind. I woke up and I had to make sure that the score I was looking at was the score. Right? I mean, I almost just hit the freeze button for a second. What is that the score? I couldn't believe Grambling had gotten back in that game so much and took it to overtime. So, again, good on them. They played well enough to play. It's one of those things. The good news is you won. The bad news is you're playing Purdue. Okay, so I agree with you. There's a lot of points, and no one in their right mind should be throwing that many points out, even with Purdue and Grambling. So.
Honestly, though, Jim, they must have heard me last night because I wasn't watching the game, but I was watching the score on my phone, and I was repeatedly just yelling, "Fight, fight!" at the screen.
Get back in there.
Sure enough, yeah, they came back.
So they played. I mean, they really, they turned the Jets on a couple of times. I mean, there were some things, and they hit some threes, by the way, that were ungodly. I mean, it was raining threes there for a while. They couldn't miss. And, look, when you have to get back in the game, you got to try those shots. And if they're hitting, man, just throw them up there till they don't. And
exactly.
And it worked for Grambling. The College of Charleston in another first round game. This one's on True TV at 7:35 p.m. tomorrow night. The College of Charleston will be playing the Crimson Tide of Alabama in a 13-4 game. Not much to say about this one either.
Yeah, I don't know what to make. Again, probably not a game I'll be on. I don't know what to make of it. Charleston's clearly not the same team they were last season, but Alabama's not what they were
Neither's
last
Alabama,
season. Yeah. Now, maybe that motivates them because they were expected to do a lot better in the tournament than they did. So maybe they get a little motivation, but they're 9.5 point favorite in this game. Could they cover the spread? Absolutely. Could it be a closer game? Sure. Like I said, not a game I'm going to be on myself, but I don't see Alabama losing this one really.
We're inside 3 minutes. Duquesne up by a bucket, 58-56 over BYU as that game closes down on True TV.
You're going to have the first bracket buster of the day.
Ooh, well, you know what? We talked about it yesterday, and that was the Duquesne Dukes made it all the way through the tournament, and they played solid defense all the way through. And, BYU was a bit of an X factor there, but we'll see. Akron is now losing to Creighton. Creighton's starting to heat up in the second half. They just started the second half. There's like 17 minutes left to go in the second half. Creighton 42 and Akron 34. Long Beach State continues to to play tight with Arizona in the first half. There's under 3 minutes in the
Fight.
first half.
Fight.
Go. Yeah. Scream fight. It's tied right now.
They can hear
Long Beach
us,
State,
Jim.
Arizona,
Fight.
33. Go. Guys, don't give up. Don't give up. And Wagner in North Carolina, that's the next game on CBS. And that'll be tipping off in about 5 minutes. So CBS has Wagner in North Carolina. Longwood draws Houston at 9:20 on TNT. And, Houston didn't look good in the tournament, their tournament. But I don't think we're going to see a 116 matchup where Longwood takes out Houston in the first round.
Yeah, so Longwood, it's hard to remember because they didn't even play last week. They were one of those conference tournaments that was in like the first week of March. But
they went on spring break.
Literally. But they were not the best team in their conference. They were not even close. They were lucky. They went on a bit of a run to win their tournament. Mm-hmm. So I'm with you. This is a gloss over game. I mean, Houston's a 24-point favorite. They'll probably win by 30 because, again, Houston lost very few games this year. And the fact that they're coming off a loss in the Big 12 tournament, which they didn't win, what we've talked a bit about these teams that where you sit on a loss for a week and you just want to come out and smash the opponent. So this could be one of those 30-point, 90-50 kind of games here.
Yeah, well, and the thing too, they were favored to win the title last season, right? At home in Houston. So much so that Jim Nantz, who retired after the game, the last national championship game, retired from doing the college basketball, is just going to do football and golf now for CBS, who is a proud Houston grad, had hoped to be able to do a Final Four where his Houston, Cougars were in the tournament. So I think Houston and UConn are two teams that are on a mission. They've laser focused on this tournament and just say, look, last year, in Connecticut's case, we want to be the, first back-to-back title holder since Florida did in the early 2000s. I think Houston is on this mission. We're saying we got to get to the Final Four and win this, because we're good enough to do it. So whether they are or they're not, we'll find out. But I don't think Longwood's going to challenge them too much.
Yeah, and Houston, it's fair to say that they're a much better team than what they were last year. How many times do you move to a stronger conference and get better, only losing like 3 games all season? So definitely got to give the respect where respect is due.
They got they ended up in this case, they got some phenomenal recruits, which doesn't hurt, and they bring back some guys who are already battle tested. So this Houston team, as I say, they're on a mission. This is like the Blues Brothers. They got the Elwood, the Elwood boys are headed. Jake and Elwood are headed to the Final Four. First round game, 9:40 tip on CBS. It will be Wisconsin and James Madison in a 5-12 matchup. And, JMU was that little team that kept plugging along all season long, right? Hovering around the top 25 and playing solid basketball. And then you have Wisconsin of the Big Ten. And they are, as we've said, and I know you've said it many times, the Big Ten plays half-court basketball, and Wisconsin is that team, and Wisconsin plays defense. So we'll have to see what JMU can do with that.
Yeah, this is one of those 5-12 matchups, so you always got to be weary. Wisconsin's a 5.5-point favorite in this game, but James Madison, very good team. Obviously, won the Sun Belt tournament, but I don't know if a lot of people remember coming into the season, they started off on that, huge, what was it, 13-0 run or something like that. They were beating teams like Michigan State, and everyone expected them to lose after these big games because there's a letdown spot, and they just kept winning and winning and winning, and then eventually that died down. But yeah, this is a very good James Madison team, and it wouldn't shock me if they got by Wisconsin here.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that you have to look out for. By the way, we're inside a minute. BYU and Duquesne locked in at a 60-60 tie. So there you go, boys and girls. Creighton up on Akron with 15 minutes left to go in that game. It's 50-42. Arizona is behind. No, I'm sorry. They just went ahead. My bad. Arizona is up now on Long Beach State. They must have stole the ball. 39-35. It was 36-35 a minute ago. Now it's 39-35. Okay. We move to the bottom of the bracket. 9:55 on TBS tomorrow evening. We talked about this a while ago because we like this Utah State team. It's TCU and Utah State in a 9-8 game. So what say you on that one? I think Utah State has played some pretty solid basketball.
Yeah, Utah State was, they've been ranked for the last few weeks. Very good team. We're the best in the regular season in the Mountain West at 14-4, and they didn't do great in their conference tournament, but they have still been a very hot team to end the season. They're going to be upset from that loss for sure. I believe they lost to San Diego State in the conference tournament.
They did,
but okay. Yeah, so that's one, and they come in as a dog into this game. You're getting 4 points against the TCU team that really hasn't played well. They got blown out by Houston in the Big 12 tournament, but even to finish the regular season, they were losing a lot of games. They weren't really playing well. So this is definitely going to be an interesting one. You have the weaker team from a stronger conference, and I say weaker in the sense that 9-9 in the conference this year that didn't have. I think they're 21-12 overall, so definitely not. The record's not as good as Utah State. They played in a stronger conference with stronger opponents, but then again, 6 Mountain West teams.
I was going to say
made the tournament, and you could make the case that UNLV got snubbed, who destroyed Princeton last night. So
on the road.
Yeah, and with the way we've seen, teams like Baylor and Kansas play this year, how much stronger is the Big 12 than are we giving the Big 12 too much credit this season?
I think that the Big 12 this year got a little more juice than they deserve. And it's going to happen year. I mean, you had ACC teams for years who got into the tournament just because they were of their name. And the perception and the reality is there. The perception is that the Big 12 Conference is the best basketball conference. In theory, it should be. But you can't overlook the fact that the quality of the Mountain West got them 6 teams in the tournament. And that's a pretty impressive, thing to do, given the conference, the way the tournament's set up. Doesn't really favor lots of double bid or triple bids for mid-major conferences. And so look at that. That's 6 teams from the Mountain West that got in there. That's a pretty impressive number. And by the way, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we were even speculating. We were saying they deserved at least 5, but weren't going to get it. So
right. And that, believe me, the amount of money that those 6 teams, by getting into the tournament, make the conference, which is spread around to everybody, is a not an insignificant amount of money. So, the 6 teams that cashed in on this tournament, it has been really good for them. So, good on them.
Well,
The
here's
final.
a question
Go ahead.
for you, Jim. Before we
Sure.
hit the last game, I just because I know that you got a better understanding on this topic than I do, and I'm just curious. Going a little off topic here, but
Okay.
do you think the performance of the Mountain West in basketball this year makes them more desirable to the Pac-12 for a merger?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because even though you're not getting, you're getting this conference for football that, yeah, maybe it's not a power conference, but, 6 bids, I think that speaks in itself.
Well, especially if you add Washington State, who won the Pac-12 tournament. So the answer, yeah. I mean, it does. It makes them more attractive. It makes it has the potential. I don't think it will happen, but I'm going to say it anyway. They're going to be able to keep their autonomy status meaning their automatic status for one more year, and then it'll be reevaluated. I'm talking about the Pac-12. You have to have 8 teams in a league to be considered a conference. Okay. Now, the NCAA, when something like this happens, when a conference dissolves or doesn't dissolve, but loses a number of its teams, gives you a year to restructure. So you figure Oregon State, Washington State, and the rest of the Mountain West, that's not a bad little package of teams. And honestly, in football, they're not bad football playing teams either. So, I think that the problem is going away from the amount of money, or getting the amount of money in TV revenue that Oregon State and Washington State got when they were in the pack. They're not going to get, they're not even get close to that. However, I think that what they can do is, if this goes into a merger, what they can do is, right now the Mountain West only gets around $4 to $6 million per team per year from television, and I could see that bouncing up to maybe 12, something like that. And then if you play in postseason play in football or basketball, you can make extra money. So at the end of the day, they might be in a position where they're clearing close to $15, $16 million per team per year because of the basketball. So yeah, to answer your question, make a long story, to make a short answer long, yeah. The answer is yeah. Their value is there, and the markets are good. So yeah, absolutely.
All right, yeah, just wanted your thoughts on that, because
Yeah,
I think they had a very impressive season
they
basketball
did,
wise.
and there's
So,
no reason to think that this is going to fall off.
yeah, and I agree with you. Teams like Boise State, Fresno State, they always seem to be a force in football. Even Utah State sometimes. So definitely, you get maybe that extra money that those teams would get helps them, recruit, bring in better players, and they can retain that Power Five.
Well, look what
status.
happened to UNLV this year. I mean, UNLV's football team, had a total, reboot, and it came off pretty good. So you've got the markets, and you've got, you got the time zones that everybody wants. You got the Western time zone, and so yeah, there's value there. It's not the kind of value money wise that came to the Pac-12, but it's good value, and honestly, I think it would make for a very fun conference, and it might be worthwhile. And we're just talking here, right? Might be worthwhile to sit down and have conversations with both Gonzaga and St. Mary's to perhaps join the conference on a basketball only deal.
Yeah, definitely.
So they could just while putting together their new their new um, um, their new conference, they could end up saying to the West Coast Conference, why don't we do like the Big East used to do, and have a basketball conference and a football conference, and and merge it together that way. So that's even another possibility. Probably less of a possibility than we would expect, but a possibility nonetheless. So
That's some good information.
just something to keep a lookout for. All right. Now here's the thing: the final game on our board here is a game that's sad because we like both these teams. We've liked them throughout the season. That's Grand Canyon and St. Mary's in a 5-12 game, and one of them's going to have to lose. But it it really is odd that you really usually do not get these kind of games um, in the tournament. Usually it's not the way it works, but in this case it is. By the way, 12 seconds left to go in the Duquesne BYU game, and Duquesne is up by a 3-ball, 67-64 in that game. The Dukes are close to making an upset here.
Yeah, definitely. But going back to the game, 100%, I'm totally disappointed. We both thought Grand Canyon and St. Mary's could get past the first round. Unfortunately, they end up playing. They end up playing each other. So someone is going to get through, but someone has to get left out too. And it's definitely a shame. Again, one of those 5-12 matchups, which I think really does speak volumes because St. Mary's is a 5.5 point favorite in this game. I have St. Mary's going pretty deep in the tournament, but it wouldn't shock me if Grand Canyon won the game. It really wouldn't. And I think this game is probably closer to a pick 'em for sure.
Yeah. And, again, if you don't know St. Mary's, and you're a basketball fan, you gotta pay attention to them. They're a talented team, and the funny thing is, year in year out, they end up being the talented team. Less than 10 seconds left to go in that Duquesne BYU game, and it's still 69-67. So BYU hit a free throw, and we'll see how it goes. There's 4 seconds left to go in the game, and it's gonna go to conclusion here pretty soon. Either because BYU is going to take the free throw, and then they're going to have to foul. And 70-67 now, Duquesne took the free throw, and so I think we're safe to say with 4 seconds left that Duquesne is now about to win this game over BYU.
Yeah, we got our first bracket buster.
Got our first upset here. The bracket buster, Duquesne, 71-67 on BYU. So that's where you are. Real quick, we'll go down through the scores one more time. Akron and Creighton. Creighton's beating Akron early in the second half. And, it is 59-42. Long Beach State and Arizona. Arizona's opened up a little lead there. 41-35. Go, boys, go. That's at half on CBS. We have a second.
They're fighting.
They're fighting. Keep fighting, boys. Carolina is up on Wagner 12-8 early in that game on CBS. It's 14 minutes into the contest, and the Tar Heels are up on Wagner by 4 in that particular game. So we hope that you have a good evening. Amedeus is going to provide you with all kinds of ability to win money by going to where his picks are in our show box below and checking in on what you've got going tonight.
Yeah, make sure you check out my premium picks at bigowl.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. All the links in the description below. Coming off a 5-3 day, it went 4-2 in college basketball, but 2-2 in the knit specifically. So 2-0 start in the NCAA tournament. I did lose my play on Mississippi State earlier today, but that wasn't my favorite game. Definitely got a lot of good stuff for tonight. Most of my games start. I think I got one at 3:10, and most are later today anyway. So yeah, make sure you go check out. I'm coming off a winning college basketball day. I got 7 plays up, plus the free play on Tennessee I mentioned. I also have a basketball play. I won in the NBA last night. And I have two soccer players in the Euro Cup qualifiers that you can get. They start in about 45 minutes. One is my game of the month for Euro Cup qualifiers. I lost my one play on the pitch yesterday, but I've had a winning week on the pitch. So make sure you go check that out.
Real quick, and that is we are checking the leaderboard at the Valspar. The reason that the Valspar is important is that if you win the Valspar, it's the last one that you'll have to. If you win, it's the last one you will have a chance to be involved in the Masters. See, the way the Masters works is they have a series of invitees, and then it's a matter of those people who win a specific number of there's specific tournaments, what I'm trying to say, on the PGA Tour, that if you have a win at that tournament, then you will automatically qualify for the Masters. The Valspar is one of them. And so it's pretty much over for the day here at they play the course at Innisbrook, which actually, ironically, I have played Innisbrook before in the Copperhead course, and it's a trip. I mean, it really is quite a course to play. And the leaderboard, real quick, will give you a little bit of what's going on. Taylor Moore is in the clubhouse. He's your leader at 10 under par. Adam Scheck is at 9 under par. Tommy Fleetwood is at 8 under par. Jordan Spieth is at 8 under par, and Wyndham Clark is at 6 under par. So that's your top of the leaderboard at the Valspar. All of those guys have finished for the day, and Taylor Moore went 4 under first round. Did a 4 under 67. So there you go. We shall see what happens tomorrow. So we'll keep you up to date on both golf and on the basketball, because those are the two things that happen during the afternoon. So there you go. All right. Don't forget Amedeus' stuff in the show box below, everybody. And we shall see you tomorrow for a Friday where we just kind of take a look at everything that's going to happen on the weekend. And there's a lot going on. So be with us tomorrow. We always enjoy you with all of your comments and questions. Take care, everybody. We'll see you. Take care. Bye.